Welcome to the Elevate podcast, brought to you by the Registered Master Builders. Each week we explore the ideas and practices that help us get the best from our businesses, our teams and ourselves. I'm your host, Ryan Castle. We talk to experts, advocates and business owners in the construction industry to share their knowledge, insights and experiences to help you build a better business and enjoy a better life. Now let the business building begin. Hi David, welcome along to Chiefs Chat on this edition of the Master Builders Elevate podcast.
G'day Ryan, how are you?
Doing well. It feels like I've got a little bit of that sort of midwinter blues, but I do have a holiday coming up at the end of next week, so looking forward to that.
Nice.
And David, I know, and we will talk about a number of the initiatives you're involved in. You're advocating at the government level, you're involved in task force, you've got Constructive coming up, you've been building your own and reconnecting with your own team at Master Builders. Give us a little bit of insight. What is it that you do to recharge, and have you got any holidays planned?
Yeah, I was asked that the other day. We actually had our staff conference, and we do this thing called speed dating, where you go around the tables and there's a number of us telling people what we do in the day. And people ask me exactly that same question, so I'll give the same answer. I do like to get out on the golf course, which probably the greenkeeper doesn't like, because I'm not sure that it's actually good for my mental health, the state of my play. So I'll probably make more work for the greenkeeper. But actually, I also like just to go for a walk. There's some lovely sort of bush walks and river walks in the Hutt Valley, and just get your mind onto something different. And I'm looking for a bit of a break later in the year, not until after Constructive, but my wife's fantastic at planning that. And, you've always got to have something to look forward to, I think.
Indeed. Let's talk about what's going on in the construction industry currently, David. We know there is plenty of challenge. We are both very closely connected to construction organisations. They're continuing to battle with supply chain issues, cost escalation, availability of labour, material supply issues. It's a tough time for our members. And maybe it's easy to forget the journey we've been on in construction. We've had a pretty good run over the last sort of 10, 12 years, but give us your insights on what the industry is facing currently.
Yeah, look, there are some choppy waters at the moment for all those reasons, and particularly more acute at the moment because of product delays and jibs probably front and centre. So I guess what we're trying to do, and it'll come through when we talk about the Constructive Forum, is think about how people operate in the current context. And sometimes, you need to take some shorter term views about what do you need to do right now. And so that's some of what we're thinking about, and trying to keep it at relatively simple level, not making it too complicated. So there's all these things that people are trying to deal with. And part of that is how much capacity individuals have as human beings to deal with all of this stuff, and to see past it. And so one of the things that we've been actively engaged with MB, with the government, is the implementation of the H1 changes around insulation. We support the general thrust and direction, but really concerned about the timing. And so we've pushed back quite hard. We're still waiting for MB to make their announcement of whether there'll be a 6-month delay. I certainly hope there will be. And I do appreciate that they've at least considered it and gone out to consultation. That is important, because it's not the only thing that people are dealing with. If that was all it was, I'd get it. But when you're dealing with a whole lot of other things and worried about being able to get work done, making sure the business is sound, looking after your people, I just genuinely think that a delay will end up much better for everyone. We'll still get the same end result down the track, but I think a much smoother implementation.
And Dave, if there are members that are listening and they're not aware what the H1, AS1 building code changes mean, are you able to just give us a very high level overview of that?
Yeah, well, I won't get into the detail, partly because I don't know all of the detail, but it is about upping the ante in terms of the thermal performance of the building, around insulation, glazing, so really lifting that level. And it means different things across the country. So we're split into 6 different zones according to the climate of those 6 different zones. So some areas like in central Otago, there are considerable changes. Others like Auckland, not so much. But overall, the thing is that both the designers and the builders need to understand the detail and how it all works together. So there is a bit of work to understand that. And then, of course, the consent authorities, they need to understand it. Otherwise, they'll receive plans, they won't think they're right, and we'll just get in a very messy churn. I mean, it's bad enough as it is, the number of requests for further information, and I can just see this being a shambles if the whole of the industry is not ready. And I've spoken to Consent Authority, the officials group, and they would prefer a delay as well, so that everyone's really clear and we don't get frustration. When you rush things, mistakes are made. And that's exactly the point that we've made.
Yeah, and I think our members appreciate that evolving the building code, building high performing buildings is a good idea. We also hear the continual frustration of the amount of time they spend around compliance and red tape. So good to hear that you're in and advocating for them, trying to change maybe the timeline on that and give them a bit of space. So thank you for your efforts in that direction. David, let's talk about Constructive. It's a very important forum for us across the year. Wonder if you might first just give us a view of your previous Constructive experience, what it's about, who attends, who comes along, what at a high level, maybe someone thinking about attending, what they might get out of attending Constructive.
Yeah, so we started this, I think, in 2016. So we've run a number of these, and it's evolved over that time. We've expanded the reach. So certainly for our members, it's a prime opportunity to engage with and hear about what's going on in the industry. But we've also tried to reach outside of our members, and we're getting more and more people from outside our membership coming along and listening and participating. So last year, I would say, is definitely the best we've had, and we had fantastic feedback from people who came along. And we, for the first time, went to 2 full days, one day primarily about residential, the other primarily commercial, but they overlap. And the thing that came back very strongly is they liked the fact that there was a debate. There wasn't just people standing up and talking at you. It was, a lot of it was panel discussion. So the ability to get competing points of view from very well-respected people, and a lot of them are people in the sector. They're not consultants. They're people who are running businesses and very successful businesses, as well as some of the government officials and others who are making the changes. So that was very positive. And this year, so we want to continue that type of approach, but actually have it a bit more interactive, because that was one of the themes, is people's ability to say, yeah, I've heard this stuff. I'd like to either ask some questions or have some way of interacting and just thinking about some of the key issues and responding. So that's what we're looking to do, make it a lot more engaging for the people that are coming along. But certainly over the last few years, what we've got is a stronger and stronger positive feedback from people who felt, yeah, I actually did get something. Because often you go to these things and you walk away and you don't get that much. So the feedback is that people are saying, no, this really was helpful, something I can apply into my business.
Great. For our listeners, Constructive is on August 25th and 26th in the Rotorua, and we'll put the link, constructive.org.nz, we'll put that in the podcast show notes for people to access easily as well. Help us understand, David, is this for both commercial and residential parts of the industry? Absolutely.
And often the people that come along go to both days, and probably that's where you get maximum value. For this year, which hopefully will be something that everyone's interested in, so we've got on each day 2 really interesting speakers from the government. The first day we've got Megan Woods, who is now both Minister of Housing and Minister of Building and Construction. And she's agreed, she's happy to take questions as part of that. And then the second day, we've got Chris Luxon, the Leader of the Opposition. So both of them, I think, will be very interesting. And our job, I guess, is to challenge them on their policies and understand if they actually have policies. And so that will be a good counterbalance to senior figures on either side of the political divide. And then we've got my counterpart from Australia, the head of Master Builders Australia, plus their national policy advisor, and they'll each be on panels. So we'll hear a bit about what's going on over there, because often that flows across. We can hear what they're doing in terms of advocacy into government and things they're trying to do and how their market's faring. Because they do, if for no other reason, we do lose people to Australia. So it's interesting to hear what's going on. And then we have a number of other, I think, really interesting speakers. One of the things that we've done in the past, and we're doing again and trying to lift it, is what we call the state of the sector. So we're out right now asking our members and others a range of questions. What are the most important things? What are the things you're worried about? What are the things we need to work on? So we're developing that as a much more comprehensive response, and with a panel who can talk to that, and then again Q&As, questions and answers about what are the things we can do about it. So the key thing really is we need to live in the present right now. We need to be realistic about what we're facing, but think about what we can control. What can we manage, and what are the things we can't? So that it's very much applied, and some of the panelists will be people in our industry that have been through this before. How have they coped with it? How have they survived? Maybe even what opportunities have they grabbed during those times? So very real, I think, in terms of what people are facing.
Yeah, great. And that representation from across the sector has got to be really powerful when you come to those panel discussions. So you're getting, everyone from policymakers that are in government right now, yep, through to the people that are feeling the effects maybe of policy that was made 2 or 3 governments ago, yep, and everyone in between. So great to have that diverse, yep, range of thinking and insight. You made me think a little bit about McKinsey's 3 Horizons, David. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that model. It's where they suggest, in terms of when you're thinking about your sector and your strategy, that you should spend around 70% of your time thinking about what's right in front of you. How do I make the business I've got right now better and more effective? 20% looking in what they call Horizon 2, thinking about what's evolving, what's changing, and it wouldn't take us too much insight to go think about how much the building landscape's changed in the last 10 years, even with the amount of change to high density. So that would be maybe something that you'd be thinking about what's in my next kind of 3 to 5 years, and then maybe 10% thinking about what's the long-term evolution, what are the technological changes, maybe macroeconomic level that we might be implementing. So sounds like Constructive would do a good job of helping you look into all of those different zones, because it sounds like there'd be some people talking about the near term right now, the what's coming up, and then what our future might hold.
Yeah, well, you've put it a lot more elegantly than I did, right? But it is that sort of thing. And so if you look to the future, while we do have to deal with the present and make sure that you're looking after your finances, looking after your people, making sure you're in a legal, a sound legal position, we also need to think about what is coming down the track, because climate change in response is going to be there. It will impact in a number of ways, including through the building code. It will impact in terms of, let's say, commercial builders or anyone doing government work, in terms of the contracts that you're required to deal with. So showing how, your carbon footprint is worked out, but particularly for larger businesses. So those are real things that you do need to have a mind to, and maybe just quietly working on in the background, while making sure that you're still delivering at the moment and still looking after your people, etc.
And all of these changes present opportunity in their own way. You can view them and go, oh, now this is something else I need to get my head around. Equally, this opens up a whole range of opportunities. I think we've seen construction companies that are master builder members that have got very focused around being green certified builders and doing the, I think 6-star rating is the right term for making sure they comply to all of those. We're seeing a whole industry pop up around tiny homes and cabins and those kind of things. So, as our industry and our landscape evolves, there's always opportunity to diversify and find new opportunity as well. So people might be able to pick up some good ideas at the Constructive also.
Absolutely. And that can work at a small business level as well as a big business level. One of the things that I'm always mindful is that, while we've got a tricky situation, we need to be honest and confront that. We've got to be careful, don't talk ourselves into making it even worse. And there is a bit of that going on at the moment. The industry commentators who love the dramatic headline.
Drama.
Yep, and so we can all get sucked into that, because then the consumers are feeling. In fact, I saw someone on the street 2 days ago who I know said, "Oh, not a good time for me to, be looking for a builder." Then I said, "I think you could be exactly wrong, because this is a time when builders might actually be more available, and you need to plan anyway."
Correct.
But you also might have some smaller jobs that some builders will be very happy to fit in. So, how do we look for those opportunities? And how do businesses, big or small, position themselves and try to find the clients who actually may not be thinking about it, but with a bit of a nudge, may think, "Oh, actually, I've got an opportunity, because I thought I couldn't get a builder at all." So thinking about all those practical things.
Okay. David, let's talk about the hot topic, and whilst that's only one of the things that is evolving in the industry, but let's address it, the plasterboard shortage. We have some initiatives underway inside Master Builders to help educate and inform, and we've got webinars and obviously this podcast, but you've been appointed by the Minister to the Ministerial Task Force. So my first question is, do you get a really cool jacket with like task force on the back of it?
Yeah, I think if I got a government jacket with anything on it, I'm not sure I'd call it cool.
Fair call. Brown cardigan, maybe? No.
But no, I don't get the cardigan. And that's unfair on public servants. They don't wear cardigans anymore. No, we don't get anything except some extra work to do. But we had the first meeting of the task force the other night, and I was encouraged by it, because some of these things can just be talk fests and no action. The approach that the minister has taken to this is being very clear about things we can do and do straight away. There won't be any great big report that we're going to wait for in a few weeks. It's specific action. So I kind of just put it into two buckets so that I can remember them. One is how can you remove some of the barriers to people using alternative products? Because you have that at the consenting gate, if you like, by different councils taking different approaches, and we've heard that. So very clear direction to MB, who have already produced some guidance to the consenting authorities so that they all know that they can use, you can use alternative products, and getting into some quite detailed guidance around specific products, which I think is really helpful. But the other side of that is it's not just the consenting authorities, as you've alluded to. It also means the designers and builders, many of whom would never have used anything other than Windstone wallboards, jib board. So we're replicating that, and you're helping us with that. So we're working with the Institute of Architects to target people, particularly on how you can do that, so that everyone's got the same information, that it's detailed and it's practical, and we won't have a situation where we've got everyone wondering what you've got to do and how to document. So that's a very practical thing, and hopefully if we do that well, that removes that barrier. The second part of the work, though, is how do you get more product into New Zealand, and how do you distribute it around New Zealand? It's all very well bringing it into a warehouse in Auckland, but how does it get to the people who need it? So that's at least that's acknowledged. It's not sorted yet, but that's part of MB's work, to work with us and others to understand what are the opportunities and how do you measure whether we're making progress or not, whether that's through the building consents or through our membership. How acute is the problem? Is other product being used, and to what extent? So I think some quite tangible results, and we'll keep meeting every 2 to 3 weeks and just trying to keep making progress and measuring whether we're making progress.
And David, can you give us some understanding of who are members of that task force, who was represented in that group?
Yep. So there's it's chaired by the Minister, Megan Woods. Apart from myself, there's Rick Hurd, who's the Chief Executive of Naylor Love, and they're importing alternative product. Shane Brealey, who's also led the charge in this respect. They're also using other product, and they've done some specific design. Tex Edwards, who was previously involved really as a disruptor in the telecommunications industry.
Founder of 2 Degrees.
Sir Stephen Tyndall, or his representative, really as someone who's, I guess, has been brought in, someone who's, got a strong commercial background and understands different models. And then Nigel Bickle, who's the Chief Executive of Hastings District Council.
Okay. And in the context of our members, David, the clarity here is that you are there representing our Master Builders members, so you're bringing the voice of the residential builder right through to our commercial members. Is that?
Yeah, I guess I've been appointed because I do represent the sector. And also I have a reasonable knowledge of the regulatory system at central government and local government level.
David, by the time this podcast airs, we will have completed our webinar around the alternative plasterboard system. So we'd encourage the Master Builders members to head to Elevate. On Elevate, we'll have a recording of the webinar, and on that webinar, we do have representatives from MB, the architectural industry, our own Master Builders members that have been involved, and the consenting authorities and building inspection authorities as well. So we've got a broad representation. So to get more info on that, please go and have a look at our webinar recording. David, maybe as in closing for our podcast today, we've talked about there are some challenges in our environment at the moment. We've got constructive coming up, but we know that some of our members are challenged right now. What advice would you have for them around maybe surviving and continuing to work through the environment we're in at the moment?
Yeah, what that brings to mind is yesterday at the staff conference and elsewhere, I've heard Nigel Latter talk about how do you cope in a difficult time. And it's obvious at a certain level, but it's worth repeating. It's you can't control a whole bunch of things, but there are some things you can control, and to focus on the things that you can control. There are so many things that there's lots going wrong in the world, and we can worry about that, and it'll drive you mad, and you can't do anything about it. It's not good for you, and it doesn't make any practical change. So the three things that I think that we can focus on and have some control over are thinking about the financial position of the business, and particularly focusing on cash flow and margins, and making sure you don't sacrifice a proper margin for cash flow. So relatively simple stuff, just focusing on the finances and specific parts of it. Secondly, the legal position, making sure that you're in a sound legal position in terms of your contracts, whether you're big or small. But if I just focus on the residential, we do have through Hazelton Law a service where any of our members can contact them, and they get 15 minutes free initial advice that we pay for through the association. So if you're worried about the position, you can talk to them and just make sure you're okay. And if there's something more serious, then you can take it from there. And the third one is the same old thing: look after yourself, your family, your mates, because that's critical. And we all need people around us that can help us, that we can just spend time and look out for people. And one of the things I've been really encouraged by, and we've talked on previous podcasts about the role of mates in construction that we're a formal sponsor of. There's 2 or 3 of our smaller branches that have had them along. They've had record turnout of people and members bringing their staff because they find it really practical. It gets that message out. It gives permission to have the conversation, encourages people to do it. So I stick with those 3 things. Don't make it too complicated, and look after each other.
Yeah, great summary of those 3 points, David. And the piece that resonated for me is when you are looking for help, be prepared to reach out and talk to people who are experts. So, if not all of us love the numbers in our business, so reach out to your accountant or your person that supports you in that area and get them to do a cash flow statement for you. There are people that love doing that. They do exist. So, reach out to them. You talked about Hazelton Law. Don't try to, if legal expertise is not your thing, there's a great resource there that Master Builders helps to subsidise. So reach out to the experts. Yeah. We've run a number of webinars around the contracts for the Master Builders. So they're a resource, but the team at Hazelton Law are just incredible. They have so much knowledge and they can answer questions so quickly.
Yeah.
And then same thing with Mates in Construction, right? They are experts in wellbeing and mental health. So again, feel free connect with those people that can help you. You don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say about all of that, Ryan, is that we have some members who've been around for a while. They've been through that stuff. They've got the scar tissue, as they say. If you know some people like that, or through your local executive, reach out to them, because they're often very generous with their time and they want to help people. So they can often give very practical and realistic advice about, well, this is how it works and these are the things you can do.
Hey, great place to wrap today's Chiefs Chat. David, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your contribution you're making for the members all across the show, and hope that a number of our members get to catch up with you at Constructive on August 25th and 26th.
Thanks, Ryan, and really looking forward to it.